Hey, help support the show by joining the Patreon or becoming a YouTube member. Also hit that like button to subscribe if you want more Cavs-focused content. Y'all want to see my impression of the Cleveland Cavaliers this last week? Like that. Hold on. It'd be like, hey, here, don't move, Paul George. Are you Andre Drummond? You Andre Drummond? Yeah, Kelly Oubre, I've been waiting for you. There. Pretty mother. Cavs, once again, put belt the ass versus the Philadelphia 76ers. A lot to talk about in this game. A lot to be excited about in this game. I'll start with this statement. All jokes aside, right? I came in doing the belt the ass bit. But all jokes aside, there's something underneath the chair and shit. I think I broke the chair. All right, but all jokes aside, the Cavs started the season on one of the second best win streak that an NBA team has ever started. They went 15-0, which was the second highest, or tied for the second highest, my bad, in NBA history. They were playing great basketball to start the year. But, and this is a tiny but, this is not me saying, oh, this is the only reason that the streak happened. But one of the things you could rightfully point out about the Cavs during that streak is that there were some outlier things happening that might have contributed to the streak. It might have made a situation to where you had to be cautious about how many takeaways you were going to get from what the Cavs were doing during that streak. And I thought that was fair, right? You had Ty Jerome shooting out of his mind. Karis LeVert was like the best shooter in the NBA during that period of time, right? George Niang was like one of the hottest three-point shooters in the league at that time. You were getting some crazy outlier-like performances. We were seeing Evan Mobley score more offensively when that had not been something that was part of the recipe for Evan Mobley. So there was a lot that was new happening for this Cavs team that I think people were rightful to be skeptical about at first when you first see it. But I watch this team now. I watch how they're winning these games, how convincingly they're winning these games, how even in a game where they kind of started off sluggish, right? They gave up 30 points in the first quarter, 25 in the second. They were on pace to give up, over 100 points in this game. Now, I'm recording this with 2 minutes left, so maybe the 76ers got over 100 in garbage time, but they just locked down the 76ers in the second half of this game. And I'm ready to say it. I think the Cavs are playing better basketball right now than they did during the streak. I don't know if they win as many games as they did during the streak because they played so many games so close together during that win streak. But it is clear to me that the Cavs that are playing today are a better basketball team than the Cavs that started the season. And the Cavs started the season as one of the hottest teams in the NBA. And the reason this gets me excited, the reason this should get you excited, is the implication of what that means. Because if the Cavs are playing better basketball now than they did at the beginning of the season, well, what's been the difference? The Cavs started off the season playing a lot of games and a lot of nights. They didn't get much time to practice, right? In the NBA, you don't get time to practice when you're playing that many games back to back to back to back. So you don't get to practice, you don't get to refine some of the stuff. When you're playing games with like 2-3 day breaks now you get more than the shoot around. Now you get actual practices. And it seems like having those actual practices, being able to get in the lab with Kenny Atkinson, that has been something that this team has benefited from. Again, when they play great defense, they are a great basketball team. They are probably, in my opinion, the best basketball team in the NBA. They came out today, and look, to start this game, they were playing awful defense. They were down like 10 points to Philly. They weren't playing their style of basketball. And then they made the adjustment in the second. It started to roll their way. And then they caught fire in the third. And then they never looked back after that. This Cavs team, I feel like over these last few games, has gotten a better understanding of why they're a great basketball team and what makes them a great basketball team. And that ability to start hot defensively and let that roll into your offense is one of those things that makes the Cavs such a threat. Now, I want to talk about Evan Mobley, but I'll save that conversation for a little later. Darius Garland in this game, I thought he played really well. 26 points, super efficient from the floor, 9 of 11 from the floor, so 26 on 11. He wasn't super efficient last night, but it's like him and Donovan Mitchell flip roles, right? Where Donovan was pretty efficient, 7 of 16 from the floor, 4 of 10 from 3, but Darius was super efficient, 9 of 11, 6 of 7 from 3, 26 points and just 11 shots. You love to see it from Darius Garland. 4 assists, 5 rebounds. Donovan Mitchell hooped in this one too. Had a pretty good game as well. You didn't get much out of Jarrett Allen offensively, which was a bit of a disappointment. But whatever you didn't get from Jarrett Allen in this game, my God, you got it from Evan Mobley. Another thing I like about how Kenny Atkinson runs this team is how he handles the second night of back-to-backs. If you've watched this Cavs team this year, you will notice that when the Cavs are in the second night of back-to-backs, you'll see them experiment a little bit more. You'll see them play through players they usually don't play through, right? So instead of relying on that traditional style that the Cavs have where Donovan Mitchell kind of dominates the ball a little bit, or it's Darius Garland, they kind of split who brings the ball up, and then sometimes it's Evan Mobley. This time it was flipped, right? He kind of gave Donovan a bit of a break, gave Darius more of a focus here, but also gave Evan Mobley a ton of sets where he wasn't just like the initiator like he is, where he was the person expected to go get a bucket. So we got to see Evan Mobley work on his bag, his perimeter bag, right? And that's one of those things you want to see. I talked about in my last video where it's like, hey, the early signs of a player getting the tools, the ingredients to build a bag are there, right? He's smacking three-pointers on a consistent basis, and they start to look natural. Some of these three-pointers are literally off the dribble. Like, you're getting really excited about that. The corner three game is there, right? His ability to finish through contact, his confidence through contact. That's another impressive thing that Evan Mobley has added to his game this year. But he doesn't have a bag yet, right? Like, you can't go, it's the fourth quarter, we need a bucket. Donovan and Darius don't got it. Get the ball to Evan, he gonna get us 2. We don't got that yet. But you can see that Evan's working on it, right? Just like 2 years ago, we saw that Evan was working on his contact game. Just like last year, we saw that Evan was really putting steps to putting that three-point game together. And then now we're seeing the fruits of that labor. This is another one where I'm like, okay, we're seeing the infancy of what is the Evan Mobley bag, right? He's got a turnaround jumper that he likes to go to. He likes to get physical. He's not big. He's not strong enough yet to get the movement that he wants when he's on that low block yet, right? Like, he's not there where he could just put that shoulder in and just move anybody, right? Like, sometimes he moves somebody, sometimes he ricochets back and he has to have a counter for that, right? Which is fine. That's where Evan is. He's not the strongest guy yet. He's not the biggest guy. He's still super young. You're still hoping that he fills out a little bit more physically or just like gets that grown man strength, right? Like, I don't know how to describe it, but there is something where you turn 25 and then all of a sudden you the same size as you were when you was 21, but you just have the focus to put that strength to use a little bit better. I can't explain it, but if you are older than 25, you probably know what I'm talking about because it's a real thing, right? And Evan's probably going to develop that sooner than later. You see the groundwork for the Evan Mobley bag. And I know in a couple of years that bag's going to be there. And if he has that bag that he demonstrated, like there was one play where he went from the top of the key, split a double team, and then dunked that shit. And I'm like, oh my God, that's going to be one of the best players in the NBA. Like, that was if you are an Evan Mobley hater, when he did that, that had to be a come to Jesus moment. Like, that was a requiem moment for you when you saw him split the double and then bang on somebody. You're like, oh, it might happen. right? Like Evan might be the deal. Evan might be the real deal because that was impressive. And look, I have been preaching to Cavs fans to be patient about Evan because the signs, right? It's like having big paws on a puppy, right? The signs were there of a player who could develop into that. It's just you got to wait in the NBA a really long time for players to develop because you draft them when they're 19. And nobody's a fully developed whatever version of they're going to be for the rest of their life at 19. So he's getting there. You can see it. The work ethic is there. The character is there. The talent is there. The natural ability is there. Evan's going to get the most out of his potential he can get as long as he's able to stay healthy. That dude's going to be a star in this league. And you should be super excited about that. The fact that he's getting the opportunity. This is why Kenny Atkinson is just such a good coach, man. These second nights on this back-to-back, he's like, all right, we're going to let Evan work on his bag. Like, that was the one thing we were wondering about because how JB ran the team, Evan didn't get opportunities to work on stuff that he wasn't good at because the Cavs constantly needed their starting five to run it its most efficient, like the most efficient it can in order to win games last year, which meant there was no room for like, hey, let's let Evan work on his bag a little bit. Let's let Evan shoot some more threes and see what happened, right? So you weren't able to develop him properly. Somehow Kenny Atkinson has this team at a place where they're playing extremely great basketball, but still has that room to be able to develop some of these young guys, especially like Evan Mobley, and get them to a place to where in a couple of years, you're going to start to see the fruits of that. Like, this is a fantastic coaching job for half the season by Kenny Atkinson. And it's very rare that somebody's coaching job has such a tangible improvement, but it is. And that's not to say anything bad about JB Bickerstaff, even though I'm sure people in the comments will do that. It just shows you, okay, JB was right for a moment on this team, but now Kenny's here and he's the right guy for this moment. And I think that's a really good thing. So that's what I have. I'm super excited. The Cavs now at 24 wins. That's half of their win total from last year. We're not even halfway through the season. We're like a third through the season. And they're playing really good basketball. Their next game is against Utah. The Cavs could potentially get to 25 wins before Christmas. Think about that. Did you have that one on the bingo card for this season for the Cavs? Shout out to everybody in that locker room who put in a lot of work. There was a lot of scrutiny on this team. Look, I was kind of wondering what this team was going to be this year, but they have put all that scrutiny to rest, man, about the core four, about the future of this team. They made some really tough, unpopular decisions at times where people were furious about it. Like what the Cavs did this offseason with all of the scrutiny on them over how the last 2 years went. That was not easy. From an organizational perspective, right? It wasn't easy for Dan Gilbert to not be impulsive. It wasn't easy for Kobe Altman to not be impulsive. It wasn't easy for any of these core players to not be impulsive. Like cooler heads prevailed this offseason and it built something tremendous. And I think a lot of people in that building deserve credit because even the most sane of us were asking for big changes for the Cavs, right? And I think a lot of people, if they were in charge of the Cavs, would have made some big changes, right? Because everybody was screaming for him. And who knows, we could have messed up something crazy. Cooler heads prevailed, and we came out of it better because of it. And that's something to think about, right? Like with this sports team, with any sports team, like whenever there's a moment where it just makes sense to let your rage flow and let your rage make decisions for you, is that really what you should do? Doesn't mean that you should always err on the side of not firing people, but it's like, hey, really think it out. And if you don't think it's right, don't do it, even if it's popular or even it's going to be unpopular to not do what people are asking you to do. And I got to applaud Kobe for that, man, because people were on his ass about not doing anything, and he stood 10 toes on it, and standing on business seems like it was the right move. So shout out to the Cavs organization for really trusting their work and sticking with it. But y'all have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.